core principles of Islamic teachings. Whether you're deepening your knowledge or reconnecting with your spiritual roots, this half hour will guide and enlighten. Tune in to reconnect, rediscover, and reaffirm your faith.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban bikum. A warm welcome to our esteemed viewers and listeners tuning into Radio Al Ansar 90.4 FM in Durban, 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. A special welcome to our viewers watching us live on Facebook and YouTube. The program is called Back to the Basics, in the company of Maulana Muhammad Salih Jusub Arbi Abu Salih Al Qadri. The program takes place every Tuesday from 1:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. and then we have a program called Be with the Beloved, Insha'Allah Azza wa Jal, every Wednesdays 1:30 to 2 p.m. So tune in tomorrow as well for that. We also like to inform and announce the Islamic Lifestyle Solutions fundraising dinner taking place on the 15th of August. The theme this year is Dawah Dimensions. There will be a book launch and a free Umrah ticket giveaway. So do contact us, inshallah, to reserve your tickets. The program Back to the Basics is where we discuss various aspects, trying to derive and deduce basic principles, lessons, and essential elements for us to ponder and reflect over. In the year 60 AH, a man by the name of Yazid forcefully assumed the position of rulership and ascended the throne of kingdom over the Muslim community. And he forcefully sat on the throne of rulership, trying very hard to win the hearts and to forcefully rule over the Muslim Ummah. Obviously, due to his conduct and due to his behavior and the various vices that became common in his time, and because of his oppressive nature, because of his dictative persona, and because of his actions, being an alcoholic, being an oppressor, a womanizer, many of the senior prominent figures in the Muslim world refused to accept him as the leader, refused to accept him as somebody who was fit to rule over the Muslim Ummah. He, in his pursuit to endorse his rule, he began demanding from prominent personalities their allegiance and their bay'ah. The Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam had predicted that Khilafat will only remain for a duration of 30 years, and thereafter Mulukiyat will begin, which means Khilafat Rashida ala manhaj nubuwah. This righteous Khilafat and this Khilafat on the principles of and on the principles and the foundations laid by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this type of Khilafah will remain for 30 years. So when you count the duration or the time period in the Khilafat of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Uthman and Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Imam Hassan radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, when you add up the time periods or when you add up the duration that each one of them served as Amirul Mu'mineen and Khalifatul Muslimin, you will find that you add them up, it gives you 30 years. And then after Sayyidina Imam al-Hassan radiyallahu ta'ala an, actually while Sayyidina Imam Hassan was the Amirul Mu'mineen and Khalifatul Muslimin, he handed over the Khilafat to a Sahabi by the name of Sayyiduna Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala an, who we do not cast any negativity towards. We maintain his respect based on the fact that he is a companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yazid was his son, Yazid ibn Muawiyah. And whatever the reason may have been, he ascended this position and he took on this position. And then based on the insecurity that he had, he wanted to cement his position, to confirm his position, and to win over, the approval of some of the major prominent personalities, like some of the senior Sahaba that was still alive at that time. And particularly the central point, or the person who had the emotional attachment of people, or the person who people were emotionally attached to in the Muslim Ummah at that time, was the beloved grandson of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sayyidina Imam al-Husayn radiyallahu an. It's also important that we understand that there are narrations where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam even predicted and foretold that Sayyidina Imam al-Husayn radiyallahu ta'ala an will be martyred. The narration is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on one occasion was present in the chambers and in the apartment of Sayyidah Salma radiyallahu an, and Imam al-Husayn radiyallahu an was a little baby, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was playing with Sayyidina Imam al-Husayn the way a grandfather plays with his grandson, with his grandchild. And Imam al-Husayn was still in infancy radiyallahu an. So some narrations say he was playing in the lap of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and some narrations say he was playing on the chest of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Sayyidah Salma, Ummul Mu'mineen, one of the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the mothers of the believers, she says that whilst the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was playing with Sayyidina Imam al-Husayn in his lap or on his chest, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was crying. There were tears in his eyes. So Salma radiyallahu an inquired, Ya Rasulullah, you are playing with your grandson Husayn. You're supposed to be so cheerful and joyful and delighted, to be playing with this baby. But I find that you are sad, you are in sorrow, and you are crying. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the reason for my tears is Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam just came to me now, and Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam informed me, Ya Rasulullah, this Husayn that you love so much, this Husayn that you are playing with, your grandson Husayn, who you call your son, this Husayn will be martyred. He will be made shaheed. He will be killed. And he will be martyred by your ummah, members of your ummah. And Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam even brought sand from the place where he would have been martyred. So the information or the news that he brought, that he will be martyred in a place called Taf, near Kufa, which then gives you the location that later on became known as Karbala. And at that time it was called Taf. And Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam brought the sand. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Salma, I'm handing over the sand to you. Take careful care of it. Look after this sand that I'm giving you. And when this sand turns to blood, you should know that on that day my Husayn has been killed. So Sayyidah Salma radiyallahu anha says that I took the sand that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to me, and I secured it and I kept it in a bottle, in a glass bottle. And on the day of Ashura in the year 61 AH, when I looked at the sand, it had, as per the prediction of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it had turned into blood. After Sayyidina Imam Hassan handed over the Khilafah to Sayyidina Amir Muawiyah radiyallahu an, and then Yazid assumed this position, he started demanding for the bay'ah of Imam al-Husayn radiyallahu ta'ala an via the governors that he had in place in Madinatul Munawwara as well as in Makkatul Mukarramah. Imam al-Husayn radiyallahu ta'ala an refused to take this bay'ah at the hands of a fajir, a fasiq, an open sinner, a transgressor, an oppressor, an alcoholic, a womanizer. And Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala and simultaneously began receiving letters from the people of Kufa, requesting and begging him for his assistance, as they expressed in those letters. They expressed in those letters how unsatisfied they were with the rule of Yazid, and they wrote letters to Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala requesting him to come to Kufa and asking Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala to migrate and come to Kufa from Madinatul Munawwara. They did the same thing in the time of Sayyidina Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib karramallahu ta'ala wajhul kareem, and they had requested Sayyidina Ali karramallahu ta'ala wajhul kareem to move the Khilafah, to move the capital of the Islamic State from Madinatul Munawwara to Kufa. And here again, to this extent, it was a repetition of history where they asked Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anhu to relocate and to move to Kufa. And the people of Kufa wrote to him and said that if you relocate and migrate and come and settle here in Kufa, then we will accept you as our Amirul Mu'mineen, and we will revolt against the ruler being Yazid. And we will denounce his rulership and we will accept you as the Amirul Mu'mineen. Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala first sent his cousin brother, Muslim bin Aqil, with 2 sons, and he sent Muslim bin Aqil to Kufa first for him to go and monitor the situation and for him to then send feedback with regards to the situation of the people of Kufa, whether they are really serious about what they are claiming in their letters, whether they are loyal, whether they are really willing to, accept him as the Amirul Mu'mineen, and if they are really serious about revolting and overthrowing the rule of an oppressor. Muslim bin Aqil radiallahu anhu goes with his 2 little sons to Kufa, and at first when he goes to Kufa, the people of Kufa give him a grand warm reception, accepting him and taking bay'ah at his hands as a wakil, but in actual fact they are keeping to their word of taking allegiance at his hands, saying that we are taking bay'ah of Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anhu at your hands, and we have accepted him as Amirul Mu'mineen, and he should relocate and he should come here to Kufa and actually take on this position. So Muslim bin Aqil radiallahu anhu then writes back and gives feedback to Imam al-Hussein that the people of Kufa are honest to their word, and they are actually serious about the things that they have written to you, and they want you to come to Kufa. They have taken bay'ah at my hands. They have kept their promise. They are keeping to their word. They are honest. They are serious. They mean what they have said to you in the letters that they have written to you. So it is absolutely okay for you to migrate and leave and come to Kufa and settle. So after Imam Muslim bin Aqil writes to Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anhu, telling him that everything is okay and it's okay for him to relocate and he can leave and come to Kufa, then what happens is that the governor of Kufa changes. Yazid then changes the governor of Kufa, saying that the current governor, Nu'man bin Bashir, is too lenient on people. Nu'man bin Bashir was a Sahabi of the Prophet ﷺ. So Yazid replaces Nu'man bin Bashir with a ruthless, heartless, merciless, tyrant person by the name of Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. And his instructions to Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad is to now crack down on people and to enhance and increase the severity of oppression killing anybody and punishing anybody who even expresses their wish, or from who it is even noticeable that they are standing in support of Imam al-Hussein. When Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad now becomes the governor of Kufa, then he now gives instructions for the military or the soldiers to now become harsh onto anybody that even seemingly is supportive of Imam al-Hussein. And when this happens, the people who had pledged an allegiance to Muslim bin Aqil for Imam al-Hussein, they start going against and turning their backs on the allegiance or the oath that they took. Sayyidina Muslim bin Aqil, all of a sudden, from having the whole of Kufa supporting him, and all the people taking bay'ah at his hands, and all the people pledging their support to Imam al-Hussein via him, all of a sudden this support started disappearing. The support structure started falling apart, and people who had pledged allegiance with Imam al-Hussein via Muslim bin Aqil, based on which Muslim bin Aqil wrote back to Imam al-Hussein telling him it was okay to come, they started disappearing. They were no longer noticeable. One narration says that on the first day Muslim bin Aqil reached Kufa, 12,000 people took allegiance at his hands, pledging support to Imam al-Hussein, and within days there was nobody left. On one occasion, Muslim bin Aqil was performing salah, and when he started his salah, there were hundreds of people reading salah behind him, and all of a sudden when he made salam, there was nobody behind him in salah. By that time, Imam Hussein and his family had already left Madinatul Munawwara. They went to Makkatul Mukarramah. The days of Hajj were about to commence. The governors of places now, Yazid, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, was starting to increase the pressure via the governors. The governor of Makkah was going to arrest Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein leaves Makkatul Mukarramah to come to Kufa. When he reaches Kufa, obviously he didn't leave Hijaz and go to Kufa with the intent of war or to fight a battle. Had he left for a war or for a battle, he would have taken a well-equipped, large army with thousands of people. If he was going with the intent to fight a war, he would have taken a well-equipped army. The people of Hijaz would have all left with him. They would have, prepared for war. He wouldn't have taken his family with. In this case, when he left with his family, his children, his wives, the women folk, his daughter, his sons. He had a little baby, infant baby, Ali Asghar, who was 6 months old. He left with two of his wives, his sister, Sayyida Zainab bint Ali, the lioness and the brave warrior, the daughter of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an. He had two of his wives with him. He had his little daughter Sakina or Sukaina. Women folk of his family, they actually went with the important family members, the sons of Sayyidina Imam Hassan, Qasim bin Hassan, the sons of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, Abu Bakr bin Ali, Umar bin Ali, Uthman bin Ali, Qasim bin Hassan, Abbas ibn Ali, Abbas al-Amdar, the half brother of Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein radiallahu an, who was also the son of Sayyidina Ali, but from a different mother, from a different wife. And Sayyidina Imam Hussein's sons, Ali Akbar, Ali Awsat Zainul Abidin, Ali Asghar, Qasim bin Hassan, the sons of Sayyidina Ja'far, the sons of Sayyidina Aqil, the sons of Sayyida Zainab. Okay, these are family members that all were with. So when Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anh left Makkah to proceed towards Kufa, there were 82 people. And by the time they reached Kufa, there were 72. And the Yazidi army, when it then eventually reached the level where when Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anh reached there, by the time he reached there, that's when he discovered, he actually discovered on the way when he met the poet Farazdaq. But when he reached Kufa and saw the situation there, then Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala found the situation where the people of Kufa now by that time had changed their loyalty, and they were now no longer loyal to Imam al-Hussein, and they were now no longer willing to keep to their word and to keep to the support that they had pledged to Imam al-Hussein. They had gone against their word, and they were now, whether in fear, but they were submissive to Yazid, and they basically had changed their mind, or they changed their heart, and they basically called Imam al-Hussein to Kufa, but they were not willing to stand by him, to support him against the tyrant ruler Yazid. Imam al-Hussein radiallahu ta'ala, when he reached there, he sent a message and he tried to negotiate, and he said, look, I have come here. I haven't come on my own. The people of Kufa called me. Now I'm here and nobody wants to stand by me in support. Allow me to go back. Allow me to go back to where I have come from, or allow me to go to some area on the border where I will live the rest of my life, not disturbing anybody and not being in anybody's way. But the Yazidi regime wanted either his bay'ah. They said, you either pledge your allegiance to Yazid and you accept Yazid as Amirul Mu'mineen, or you get ready for war. And Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein radiallahu anh had to make a choice, and he chose not to accept Yazid as Amirul Mu'mineen, and it resulted in something that you can't even call a battle. It was an incident. 72 members of the household of the Prophet ﷺ, with some of the loyal supporters, but mainly family members of the Prophet ﷺ, 72. And the Yazidi army comprised and consisted of 22,000 soldiers. This took place on the day of Ashura. From the 7th of Muharram, occurrences like water, there was no access to water. The Yazidi regime had surrounded the Euphrates River, denying water reaching the Husseini camp, or the place where the Imam al-Hussein had camped with his family. They shouldn't have any water. Water was denied to them. They were starved. And by the time of Ashura, they were forced with no option but to face the Yazidi army in this, in inverted commas, battle of Karbala that took place on this land, or on this battlefield that is now situated in Karbala. Family members of Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein, one by one, were martyred in front of his eyes. His son Ali Akbar martyred in front of his eyes. His son Ali Asghar, the 6-month-old infant, was martyred in his arms, shot with an arrow that pierced his throat, because he took the 6-month-old baby and asked, can we get a few drops of water to moisturize his throat? Abbas Alamdar, the flag bearer of Karbala, was martyred in such a way where he forcefully went to, grab water because of the thirst of the children in this camp, Sayyidina Sakina, Sayyidina Ali Asghar, and his arms were chopped off because he was carrying water in a leather bag. The hands that he was carrying the leather bag with was chopped off. He held it with the other hand, that was chopped off, until he was shot with an arrow and brought to the ground. Qasim, son of Imam Hassan, was martyred. Ali Akbar martyred. Ali Asghar martyred. Ali Awsat was severely ill. And one by one, the loved ones of Imam al-Hussein were martyred in front of his eyes, until the turn came for him to go onto the battlefield and embrace this unique and exclusive honor of being Sayyidu Shuhada, the leader of the martyrs. Post 61 AH, this incident of Karbala is something that is remembered not just annually but all the time, because it is a major incident that tells us about the greatest sacrifice after 61 AH in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, is the sacrifice given by Sayyidina Imam al-Hussein and his family members. This is a brief, concise account of what took place at the Battle of Karbala, the incident of Karbala, the tragic martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. It is something that has a lot of detail to it. It can be discussed over several lectures. But this is in brief what actually occurred. And in today's program, we dedicate it to the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein, and we take inspiration from the level of sacrifice given by the family members of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially his grandson, who was so dear and near and beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yet he had to undergo and he had to go through such atrocities and genocide that took place on the day of Ashura on the plains of Karbala. May Allah elevate the status of Imam al-Hussein and the Ahlul Bayt and the family members of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that became shaheed at Karbala on the day of Ashura. Jazakumullahu khairan. Do remember to tune in to tomorrow's program, Be with the Beloved. Until we meet then, thank you to Ted. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
When you give water, you're reaching out to drought-affected areas, bringing them to life. Fresh water to drink, to clean, and to grow. That's the power of water. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
This third-term school holiday, experience 3 Haram and 2 Haram tours. Packages from just 30,000 Rand, all inclusive.